Welcome to Schlaue Menschen Radio. We have an exciting broadcast you don't want to miss. I'm your host, Kat.
And I'm Joe.
We're going to be looking at some of Hitler's faithful supporters, rebel conspirators, and what prompted them to plot against Hitler, resulting in Operation Valkyrie from World War II.
We want to dig deep and find out what really happened, what the plan was, who was behind it, how different people viewed it, and why the plan failed.
But before we get into the details, we need to set the scene and explain the purpose of Operation Valkyrie.
Many people, when they hear the phrase Operation Valkyrie, either have no clue what it is, think of an assassination attempt on Hitler's life, or have the Tom Cruise movie come to mind, but not many people could explain what really happened.
Now, if you're one of those people who immediately thought of an assassination attempt, you're not wrong, but are missing the larger picture and the motives behind the attempt.
True, many people hear Operation Valkyrie and think of the July plot, which was strictly the assassination attempt on Hitler's life that took place July 20th, 1944. This was the main event of the operation, and really the only one that was somewhat carried out.
Alright, let's back up and give a summary of the whole operation to give everyone an overview of what happened.
So it's July 1944, and things are not looking great for the Germans. Now granted, the war is not even close to over yet, but the tides are definitely churning. Slowly, but churning. D-Day just took place a month before, where the Americans stormed the beaches of Normandy to attack France. Over the past few months, the Germans in certain places across Europe have lost some ground.
Operation Valkyrie got started when a group of high-ranking German military leaders decided that Hitler was leading the country to its destruction and had to be stopped. These leaders were Colonel General Ludwig Beck, Friedrich Ulbricht,
Major General Henning von Tresckow, Lieutenant Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg, and Werner von Heften.
The plan, simply laid out, was this. The group plotted first to take Hitler out of the picture by using a briefcase full of explosives to kill him.
However, this was just a step in the larger plan. The German Reserve Army was to revolt and overtake the government in Berlin in a coup d'etat after their allegiance was broken by the news of Hitler's death. The German officers, then having taken control of the government and public communications, planned to make peace with the Allies and end the long war.
This operation was actually modeled after Hitler's own Operation Valkyrie, a plan to maintain control of the government if the people were to turn against him. If an uprising was to occur against Hitler, he planned to fake his death, but still end up with his own men in charge of the government. The German conspirators planned to use this idea and turn it around on Hitler to take him down.
The actual assassination attempt was supposed to take place at a meeting with Hitler and some of his high-ranking officials. Lieutenant Colonel Stauffenberg was to carry a briefcase full of explosives into the meeting, leave when the explosion happened, and then head to Berlin to set the coup d'etat into motion.
A surviving conspirator, when later interviewed, told of why Stauffenberg was just the man for the job.
Such a rare specimen was Count Stauffenberg, an ardent idealist with unheard of charm, but very matter-of-fact, very clear, and very precise. This mixture of hot and cold, so to speak, was tremendously attractive at this moment, and I have rarely met in my life a very outrageous man.
After Stauffenberg left the building, the bomb went off. The explosion killed one person instantly and fatally injured 3 others, but it did not kill Hitler. This kept the planned uprising in Berlin from happening.
Now we'll take a more in-depth look at the course of action taken during the plot. July 20th, 1944, Frattenberg, East Prussia, the Wolf's Lair.
Army Chief Colonel General Zeitzler was sitting in a wooden room, poring over maps and waiting.
Hitler sat unsuspecting at a meeting with 22 of his Nazi officials.
Meanwhile, a plot concocted by the conspirators was already well underway. Lieutenant Klaus von Stauffenberg arrived at the Nazi compound with his associate Werner von Heften. They quickly hurried inside the building, where they met the general. It was here that the 2 conspirators found out that the briefing had been moved to a hideaway nicknamed the Wolf's Lair. Due to previous attempts on his life, Hitler often changed meeting areas at the last moment.
Quickly, Stauffenberg asked to change his shirt due to the hot weather. Once they were in private, they began to work on the 2 bombs. Using pliers, they began making holes for the 30-minute fuses in the English dynamite explosives.
It was after the first charge was activated that the general became impatient. He knocked on the door demanding they get in the car so they could leave. Stauffenberg made the executive decision that the plan would have to work with only one bomb. The lieutenant carefully placed the active bomb in his briefcase and the other went in his associate's bag.
As they stepped outside, Stauffenberg's fellow conspirator offered to carry his briefcase, and the lieutenant politely refused. He told him that he preferred to carry his own papers. Klaus von Stauffenberg then made a request to an officer to stand as close to Hitler as possible, due to his bad hearing.
Once the Nazi conspirators arrived at the Wolf's lair, they hurried inside. Stauffenberg inched as close to Hitler as possible and discreetly placed the briefcase under the table. As soon as the meeting began, Lieutenant Klaus von Stauffenberg then headed towards Colonel Brandt and said,
"I have to go make a phone call, and I'm leaving my briefcase here until then."
With that, he set the briefcase by Brandt and left. Outside a few minutes away, a car was waiting with a few undercover conspirators. Once Stauffenberg had arrived at the vehicle, the bomb went off as planned.
The vehicle sped off, driving by the carnage of the Wolf's lair. Stauffenberg spotted a body covered by Hitler's jacket being brought out on a stretcher as pieces of paper floated through the air. It appeared as their plan had succeeded.
In the midst of the madness, their car was stopped by the last checkpost in leaving the compound. Thankfully, Heften had thrown the second unactivated charge into the force before approaching. Their car was cleared, and the rebel group boarded a plane to Wolfenstein.
Back at the base, General Frederick Fromm, Stauffenberg's senior officer in the reserve army, and another conspirator, got intel that Hitler had not been killed, and he turned on Stauffenberg in an attempt to save himself. Fromm threatened to arrest Stauffenberg and cut off his ties with the conspirators. Stauffenberg, however, turned the tables on the general and arrested him instead.
Stauffenberg ordered Valkyrie to be carried out regardless because he believed that the man he saw on the stretcher was Hitler.
The whole world will vilify us now, but I am still totally convinced that we did the right thing. Hitler is the arch-enemy of not only Germany, but the whole world. When, in a few hours' time, I will go before God to account what I have done and left undone, I know that I will be able to justify what I did against Hitler. God promised Abraham that he would not destroy Sodom if just 10 righteous men could be found in the city, and so I hope that for our sake God will not destroy Germany. No one among us can complain about his death, for whoever joined our ranks put on the shirt of Nesis. A man's moral worth is established only at the point where he is ready to give up his life in defense of his convictions.
Now let's backtrack and take a look at what went on in Wolf's lair.
Uncomfortable with the suitcase by his feet, Colonel Brandt ignorantly shoved it slightly further under the table, so that there was now a table leg between it and the Fuhrer.
At 12:50, the bomb exploded.
Although killing 4 others, it failed to extinguish Hitler, who escaped with only shredded clothing and minor injuries.
His left arm suffered a contusion, his eardrums were damaged, and his legs contained splinters from the wood floor. But taking into account his proximity to the bomb, walking out alive was nothing short of a miracle.
Minutes later, Hitler emerged from the smoking room, leaning on General Wilhelm Kittel, and saying, "What was that? I'm alive! I'm alive!"
Both were blackened from soot and had singed hair, but after an examination were pronounced for the most part unharmed.
In fact, didn't Hitler immediately resume business?
Yes, later that very same day, he went on with a planned meeting with his Italian ally, Benito Mussolini, as if nothing had happened.
Why didn't the bomb hit its target? Was it just because the briefcase was moved a couple of inches over?
Its failure can be attributed to several other factors. For instance, the floor was wooden and may have absorbed a fraction of the effect, whereas concrete would have ensured the full amount of force was released.
So, if the bomb had gone off in the concrete bunker the meeting was originally planned to take place in, the explosion would most likely not have had the same effect.
Yes, the chances of survivors would have been much lower, if any at all. It's also said that there was a heavy column of the table between Hitler and where the bomb was moved, which likely absorbed the brunt of the blow intended for Hitler.
Unhurt as he was, we can be sure that he and those loyal to him wanted to ensure Germany, their leader, was alive and well. Headlines in the Star newspaper the next day read,
Führer's miraculous escape from the bomb. An attempt on Führer's life was made today with high explosives. 3 officers in his company were seriously wounded, and others were slightly wounded, but Führer himself had only slight burns and scratches, but no wounds. Without delay, he resumed his work.
In addition to newspaper coverage, Hitler made a 6-minute speech after the attack, broadcasted over the radio, letting people know that he was not dead, as many rumors were being spread.
My comrades, the men and women of the German people, I don't know how many times it is by now that an assassination has been planned and attempted against me, but I am talking to you today for 2 reasons in particular, so that you can hear my voice and know that I am unhurt and well, but also that you may know the details of a crime that is without equal in German history. A very small clique of ambitious, dishonorable, and at the same time criminally stupid officers have conspired to remove me, and at the same time to overturn the staff leadership of the German armed forces. A bomb that was planted for Colonel von Stauffenberg exploded 2 meters from my right side. It very seriously wounded a number of my faithful staff members. One of them has died. I myself am absolutely unhurt.
Es ist ein ganz kleiner Klüngel verbrecherischer Elemente, die jetzt unbarmherzig ausgerottet werden. Unser Führer, Sieg! Sieg! Sieg!
A special badge was created by Hitler for those who experienced the bomb attack along with him.
Yes, the wound badge was an honor higher than any other. It came in either black, silver, or gold, and each displayed Hitler's signature, a symbol of great loyalty and honor until the end of the war.
So that is what the supporters received. Am I right to think that the conspirators did not get such kind of treatment?
Completely correct. The aftermath of this attack was not a pretty sight. On the conspirators' side, they should have been prepared the backup plan. Due to their failure, or overconfidence, Hitler severely punished those involved and was back on top of everything within 12 hours.
Stauffenberg was shot dead by a firing squad along with 3 other guilty persons in Berlin.
But they weren't the only ones to be punished?
Oh no. As soon as Hitler's SS boss arrived in Berlin, mass arrests began. The leading conspirators were hunted down and then hung on meat hooks by piano wire, all of which was filmed and sent to Hitler for his own enjoyment.
Many committed suicide rather than face what was coming from the Nazis.
Over the next several months, there were some contradictions in the number, but it seems that Hitler was willing to take no risks in letting anyone escape.
An estimate of 7,000 additional people were rounded up and interrogated for alleged connection with the conspiracy. Of those, 200 were certainly executed, but research shows that up to 5,000 could have been killed.
That sounds a little bit extreme.
Yeah, well, Hitler obviously had some issues.
News of the conspirators' assassination attempt on Hitler quickly spread across the Atlantic Ocean to America. Hitler's speech on July 21st was published in many large newspapers. In addition to the full-length speeches from leading Nazi officials, a New York Times article covered more of the story.
Hitler, a target of similar plots. News reports abound of attempts on his life. Lack of facts promotes doubts. Yesterday's German report of the attempted assassination of Hitler is the second officially admitted attempt to kill the Führer since the accession to power in 1933, although there have been many unconfirmed stories of other occasions when the assassins and plotters sought to take his life.
An even more descriptive piece appeared on the cover of the Chicago Daily Tribune.
July 21st, 1944. Hitler executes plotters. Bears revolt of officers. Surrender conspiracy crushed. Berlin claims dictator bruised by blast. 1 dead, 12 hurt. Revolting army bears by Hitler. Plotter slain, Führer slightly hurt. Peace clique blamed. Death targets. Adolf Hitler, slightly bruised and burned by a bomb explosion, declared today that a group of German army officials failed yesterday in an attempt to assassinate him and prepare for a surrender, as in 1918. But he and the other speakers, in an unprecedented broadcast, made it obvious that Germany confronted a major internal crisis, if not a widespread revolt against his Nazi regime.
Despite how serious this news may appear today, most American news was preoccupied with another announcement. President Franklin D. Roosevelt had been nominated as the Democratic presidential candidate. His mission was this, in his own words: first, to win the war fast, and to win it overpoweringly. At this time, however, few people seemed to realize just how close Hitler had come to death. The July plot was the last of 15 attempts on Hitler's life made by the Germans. Its failure prevented Operation Valkyrie from ever being carried out. 9 months later, when Berlin was surrounded, Hitler committed suicide, ending his regime.